Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. We have been working through this Bally Playboy a Playboy pinball machine here, and made a couple videos on it. We did one where we just looked it over, put it together. The thing actually still runs. And then we did another one where we tore apart the playfield. We're waiting on some plastics and things like that. Got it all cleaned up, but we need to do some painting and things. And we've been working through the boards a little bit. The thing was already booting up, but one of the things that was wrong on the previous one was we didn't have any of the controlled lamps. They're all working now. Well, not all working, but the controlled lamps themselves are working now. There's a bunch of them that don't light up, but we'll get to that. I like to kind of work through the boards in order. So the next thing that we're going to mess with is the solenoid driver board, and then we'll get over to the lamp driver board where we can figure out why a bunch of these aren't doing anything. And they just all turned off again. Ooh, interesting. What a great thing to catch on video. You saw that, right? They were working, and now they're not. We're in test mode. That's why there's nothing on the display. So the game is actually running right now. Let's see if we just wiggle the connectors. If we just wiggle it. Now, you don't think that I'm going to get shocked, do you? Okay, that doesn't do it. Interesting, huh? So it died right here while we were looking at it. Well, let me set up the camera and we'll check the voltage again on the power supply and see if the power supply itself died on us. Well, I'm glad it did that because we didn't catch on the previous video exactly what fixed our problem. So let's check the voltage on test point 1. It is gone. All right, perfect. Okay, folks, so all I did was replace the fuse, turned it off, replaced the fuse, and now we've got a whole bunch more of the lamps working. So we've still got some kind of problem with that, but we're going to move on and do some connectors and things. And I'm going to just turn it on and off and just see if it happens again, and see if I can figure out what's going on whenever the voltage disappears again. Interesting. Okay, so next thing we're going to mess with is this solenoid driver board. I'm going to do the regular updates that we do to it and pop it out of there. But we definitely have something going on with the lamps. And I think they're all they're not attracting now. They're just kind of stuck on and stuff. So there's definitely something going on. We need to get over to the lamp driver board, but we're working our way that way. Okay, so here's the solenoid driver board that was present in this Playboy. It's an early one, it looks like. November of '77. It actually says revision 1 here, but I guess that's that revision of that number. I don't think it's the first revision of this number, because I've seen the ones. Well, you see how the traces look. It's actually pretty old, but there's some that are hand-drawn traces. I can't remember if those are only on the sterns though. It's an early one though. Okay, so I'm going to do what I usually do. So I'm going to clean all the connections, and we're going to resolder the connections. Of course, remember the thing's already running, so we're just trying to do preventative maintenance. I'll clean up the back. Everything looks great. I'm going to tie test point 1 and test point 3 together. So test point 5, this one up here on the top, that's where the 12 volts unregulated comes into the board. And then this regulator turns it into 5 volts. And then the 5 volts goes out on test point 1. Right, so over here, test point 1 is connected to that. Well, one of the weird things it does is it loops the 5 volts from about right here out of the connector and then back into the connector right here. And that's test point 3. It's the same exact voltage. So why would they do that? I've been looking into it a little bit by studying how the schematics work and stuff. It actually kind of makes sense. Well, no, it doesn't make sense. Never mind. Take back what I just said about it making sense, because it still makes no damn sense. I forgot about something. So, it's a weird setup. Someone said that they did it for test figures. There's some test figures that some test jigs that do it differently, but I don't know. Anyway, this board is 3 separate things. So this is the high voltage area for the displays. So this makes the high voltage 190 volts for the displays. That's what this area does. And then there's the 5-volt regulator. It takes the 12 volts and turns it into 5 volts. A regulated 5 volts, right? And then there's the bottom of the board, which is the solenoid driver board. So it grounds all of the solenoids through these big transistors. Got to watch what I say. If I say the wrong word, people want to tell me I'm saying the wrong word. Communication is getting harder, folks. It's getting harder. People act like they don't know what you mean if you use the wrong word. I don't know when we got to a point in time where people publicly proclaim how ignorant they are, but they do. It's weird. They'll say, "You said it's a transistor, but really it's an SCR. I'm confused." It's just this weird thing. It's like, yeah, you are confused. You're confused. Anyway, rant mode off for now. So there's this whole thing where this gets 12 volts on this connector, and then it creates 5 volts that goes out this connector, and then goes from there to here. So the whole point is there could just be a jumper going from here to here. Why did they put it on the connector? Because you can't plug in the voltage to this. You can't plug in the input to this and then have the output disconnected. That would make sense, because you could say, okay, 12 volts is coming in. We don't have the output connected out, so none of these chips are getting this voltage until we check it, because this thing might short and send 12 volts out. Right? So if these chips on the same board had a jumper going straight to them, when this was screwed up, it would fry these chips. So you might put a little disconnect where it's disconnected, but it's not like that because it's on the same connector that the input's connected on. I've been complaining about this for years. I have yet to my satisfaction, figure out why they did that. But it makes sense if they had like a test jig. Maybe it works different. So on the test jig, maybe it does that. But maybe it has the wire comes out and there's a switch on the jig, right? So maybe they got a big thing like this. I've seen those before, but I just never paid much attention to them. And you plug the board in, and it sends the 12 volts in, and then it measures that 5 out. Maybe there's even a meter. Let's just dream. Maybe there's even a meter that says 5 volts going out, but you look at it and it says that it's 9 volts because this is screwed up, and you go, wow, good thing I didn't have the switch on, which sends the power to these chips too through that little wire jumper. It could be something like that. I don't know. Just trying to imagine here. So, but since we don't have that, and since they are connecting those two together with a wire that goes off this connector, we're just going to do it on the board. Makes it a little more reliable. Might help you, keep you from having a problem with the solenoids. So we're going to do that. We're going to replace this 5-volt filter capacitor. These get old. About time for them to go. We're going to do a little ground upgrade too. Just 2 little ones. Okay, so one is this ground for the rectifier, or the regulator, only connects on one little pin. They've got all of the grounds connected separately. So it comes over here onto one pin. But what you can do, ooh, you know what? On this one I can't do it. Well, we won't be doing that. I mean, I could do it by running some longer jumpers, but usually there's a ground trace that runs right under here, and it's real easy to just put a jumper, but on this one it's not there. So maybe we won't do that. Maybe we'll leave it alone. But what that does is, instead of the ground leaving the board on just one pin, that could have problems, have a little resistance on it or whatever, and that screws up your 5 volts for the entire game. If you tie that ground to some of the other grounds that are also leaving the board, now it has multiple paths and it kind of ties everything together. It's just a neat little upgrade that people do. And then the other one is you can do the same thing up here for the displays. This is the filter capacitor for the displays. It's a big one connected there. And this is the ground. And so you can connect that to here, and that does the same thing. To be honest with you though, if you look at how this thing is laid out, all that's going to do is connect it to the ground plane of the back box, because that ground plane that runs all the way around the edge doesn't actually connect to the ground, any of the grounds created by the voltage regulator, or that are the voltage regulator, or that are used in the high voltage, or that are used in the solenoid drivers. That's probably the ground there, because it's running to all of the transistors so that they can be grounded to turn the solenoids on. But anyway, enough of that. I guess it says on the front too what the ground is. There it is. Yeah, so this trace, this ground trace, usually is on the back. You could do the same thing here, run that from there to there. Maybe we'll figure something out. But again, everything works, so we're just trying to do preventative maintenance stuff to maybe hopefully make it a little stronger in the future for Mr. Keith, for the Playboy Keith wrestler. Cool dude. Alright, so resoldered them like I said, put a new filter cap on, put a jumper from the ground to the other ground, and by the way, it is connected to this trace. They're connected through the vias to the front, and it's all around the front, and on the front it's connected right there, or I mean right there. You got to be careful. If you go by the test points though, it'll help you figure it out. So the one trace has the ground test point on it. It's clearly the ground. On the front, this one's marked positive, this one's marked ground, so it's clearly the ground. So you know, you got to be, if you connect the wrong couple things on this board, you'll fry all kinds of stuff. You really got to be careful. And then this is test point 1 to test point 3. Up here, I just was able to do it with a glob of solder. I wanted to show you something though. You got to look out for stuff like this. I see this a lot actually. So this is a cap that has another cap soldered on top of it. That's actually a factory thing, I believe. I see that a lot. A lot of these have that set up. Remember, this is revision 1 of this number, and it's the November 77 revision of this number. They made several of these because they were rocking and rolling. They were selling literally tens of thousands of pinball machines at the time. Every one of them was just banging out a ton of them. They had already made 8-ball, which sold 20,000 machines. Matahari probably sold 8,000 or 9,000 machines. This Playboy that we're working on probably sold 12,000 or 15,000 machines. I mean, there's a ton of them being made. So they're constantly revising these things and stuff. So they would do things like just add little, like they wanted that cap and that cap there, so they soldered it on top because they didn't have the board made yet where there was room for it. But the problem is, you know, something like a capacitor, it has two connections, one on this end and one on this end, and this one up here is the positive connection and this is the negative connection. Well, this capacitor here it's not polarized, so it doesn't matter which way you put it. It doesn't have a negative side and a positive side, or does it? Am I lying to you? That says positive, so maybe this does. It shouldn't, but whatever. It doesn't even matter. The problem is the way that this capacitor is constructed. If you look, the leg is tied to the outside foil of this cap. And then if you look on this side, the positive is tied to the pin coming out of the center of the cap. But the way they have this installed, that leg is touching not only the positive, but also the negative, because it's leaning over and touching the metal can itself. Look at that. How the hell that hasn't shorted out over the years, I have no clue. Come on, people, you can't do that. Come on now. You're touching both with the, you see what I'm saying? So it's the positive is touching the negative. This is jumpered over basically by that one little leg there. Can't do that. Now on this end, technically, it's not that big of a deal if you're touching that and the canister. But that's not a good idea either, because you got you got to make sure that you know that they're both the same electronic connection. Now it could be that there's like a film wrapped around that can. I don't think there is though. I think we're looking at an aluminum can. So I got to clean that up so that it doesn't actually do that. So one of the things you could do, since it's already kind of a hack, you just put it on the back of the board, and then it doesn't. You don't have to worry about it touching that. So I might just do that. All right, so we got it installed back in. I put that cap on the back. We need to check the voltage to the high voltage to the displays. We need to check the 5 volt and see if it's close. And we've still got it doing the weird thing with the lamps. They're kind of working. They flicker. They do weird stuff. Now they're back to coming on, and they're not all flickering. There's definitely some problems going on with that still. We may end up having to take this back out and replace the bridge rectifier. But we have moved on to the MPU, which doesn't look like it has a ton of damage to it, which we're going to get lucky on that. So I'm going to pull it out, put it on the bench, and we'll see if we can do a nice little service to it. So what would a nice little service to it be? Well, there's about 1, 2, 3, 4. There's about 4 things we need to do to it. One, we need to do the same thing we did on the other, resolder these 4 connectors. And the reason for that is because they get broken solder joints. So let's see if I can see any on here for you. It's always at the end. Whenever you pull the connector off, it breaks the solder. Yeah. Oh no. See that second one? See how there's a ring around it? It's completely broken loose. But wait, we now have a microscope. Alright, so we got this Tomlov microscope. And you don't necessarily need a microscope, but it just helps you see things, and I can make the point better on my videos for sure. This thing works great, by the way. So this ring around it, the pin on the top is physically disconnected from the solder pad. It's not even connected to the board right now. This one, the back part might be, and then you also run into a thing where amperage is a thing. So like if it's just barely connected, you're not going to get much juice through there. In my layman's terms. Okay, same thing there. You see the stress fractures. It's a physical break. It's physically been broken. And it's the ones at the end because of just the nature of how you physically pull the connector off. So we got to resolder all that. Now, whenever I resolder those, and we'll do that here later because we got to clean it up. But whenever I resolder those, what I do is I take a wire brush, not a crazy one, but a wire brush, and I clean the solder off. Just I scrape it up. Just because you get nice, clean, bright solder, you're getting some of the dirt and the dust and the oxidation off. Yeah, you can try to clean it off. If you had some kind of liquid that you could paint on it to clean it off, or you can do it with isopropyl alcohol. But you end up where there's stuff down in between and everything. A wire brush just works good. You can get it nice and fresh, and then it'll take new solder and make it easier to clean up. So that's the first thing we got to do. We have to resolder all of that. Let me turn off my camera. This thing's just cool. You can just slide it out of the way when you're done with it. Easy peasy. I like it. So that's one. Next thing we need to do is the bad connections that we're saying we have here, we also have on all the sockets. So where the pins go into the socket, there's issues. Look at that. That's black. It's so oxidized and tarnished that it's black. So what you'll find is if they sit in the socket just right, the part that's touching the pin in the socket, the little thing that squeezes the leg, it's clean, and the pin of the chip is clean right where it's touching it, because they're touching each other, so they haven't tarnished. But what happens is these move a little bit over time. So just anything will do it. Flexing it, rolling it down the street, looking at it wrong, and that pin moves just slightly. And now you have a tarnished part of the pin that's been exposed to the elements, and now it's touching the metal thing, and it's not conducting electricity through it. So if you get one pin doing that, thing won't work. So we're having this problem with the lamps. Well, this board controls all of that. That's why I was saying we're kind of doing it over to that area. The power supply creates the transformer transforms all the power and rectifies it to the voltages that you need. It's sent up to the solenoid driver board, which again changes it from 12 to 5. All of these chips run off 5. The power comes in here. The corrosion that we're going to see here in a minute harms this connection. But then you also have all of these ROMs that tell the whole thing what to do. It literally tells it which lamps to turn on and turn off. And it uses these two chips to do it. So one of these chips is going to do lamps, one of them is going to do switches, one of them is going to do displays, etc., etc. These two PIA chips. On the Williams games around this time, they had, I think, 3 PIA chips. This one, it doesn't quite need that many because of the way the solenoids are done. But so my whole point is, bad connections on these legs in the socket will cause problems too. So we're going to carefully remove each chip, clean the legs, and then put them back in. The way I do it is I've got like an old worn out file, and I just clean them up with the file a little bit. Don't go crazy. I mean, you don't want something super aggressive that's going to cut up the legs of the chip or anything. You're just trying to get all the tarnish off. Other people do it other ways. You can do it however you want. That's how I do it, and I've been doing it like that for, I don't know, 20 years. Everything's been going good. More than 20 years. So that's that. So that's the second thing we need to do. We need to clean up all the sockets. The third thing we need to do is we need to remove the battery and clean up the damage that the battery has made. So this battery they mount at the bottom of the board to do the bookkeeping and stuff. And as it leaks over the years, it starts corroding the board. And it can handle it a little bit. Right now the board's still working. But you see how it's creeping under that chip, for instance. See the legs of the chip? That's corrosion. So that's corrosion that has creeped up these traces through the pins and then up onto the leg of the chips. Right? And the chip's still working. So it's right on the borderline though. That pretty soon that's going to stop making contact and this board won't boot anymore. So we got to clean all this up. So we're going to remove the battery, clean this stuff up. It's a base. It's not an acid. It's not battery acid. It's battery alkaline. So you actually use an acid to neutralize it. So you clean it all up, try to get rid of all of it on a mild case like this. And this is mild. Out of a 1 to 10, 10 the worst I've seen, this is a 1. Or maybe a 2, maybe, but not really. Like look over here. Nothing. And this is not battery corrosion. This is just where the pins are tarnished. So you know you got a little bit, but again it's still booting, so it can't be too bad. And then they get over here a lot too, but on this one, nothing. Everything's cool. So it's not bad at all. So that's the third thing we need to do. We need to clean up all that. This is going to need a new socket. And then the fourth thing we need to do is we need to put a new battery in it that won't leak. So that's what we're going to do. So I guess a better order would be to do the battery first. So let me cut it off and start cleaning stuff up. You can actually see why the battery didn't destroy the board yet. It says TDI, the helpful people, 2320 Wisconsin Avenue, Downers Grove, Illinois, 60515, and their phone number. Now, Illinois, Chicago is where all these pinballs were made. The battery that's on these boards originally looks just like this. But this particular one has a date code on it that says September of 86. Or that might be the 9th week of 86. So, this game was released in 78. So 8 years later, somebody actually swapped a battery. So because of that, the battery's not quite as old as they usually are, and it's survived it. Alright, so I cleaned it up. I'm going to put some vinegar on it and leave it on overnight. It cleaned up pretty good, actually. These traces here, it's usually these three, actually, are what will give you problems. So if you work on one of these and it won't boot, check these three traces, because they're right there in the corrosion zone. And if that via gets corroded going through the board, they're no longer connected. So you need to connect. You need to look where they go. They all end up over here and connect to this 5101 down through here. And I think one or two of them actually connects to the 6810 as well. And so they go through the board and then along the back and then to here and here. And so what'll happen is they'll break right there. Like, that'll be so corroded that it's no longer making contact with the via that goes through the board. Usually the back's not that bad, but so I put a new socket on it, cleaned the 5101 and put it back. Cleaned all the chips. I've gotten up to the CPU, the 6800. And it's getting clean, but one of the legs broke. So what happens is after they just get so tarnished, the legs get fatigued. So it's still on there, and you could probably solder it back on, but it's about to break. And there it went. So, and it's not every pin. Like, so if I mess with this one, they're all the other ones are nice and solid, but that one was weak, and so it just broke. And that's the way the CPU crumbles. Okay, the rest of them cleaned up pretty good, though. I'm going to put another 6800 in it. Oh, let me show you the back, those traces I'm talking about. So those traces are like this one and these two. Alright, so it cleaned up pretty good. Like I said, it wasn't that bad. Alright, new 6800, and I'm going to show you what I do for the battery. Alright, so the way I've been doing the battery lately is putting a button battery in it. About like that. Or maybe it's the other way. I think it's the other way. About like that. You can put NVRAM in, though. You just take this chip out, 6810, and replace it with a RAM chip that doesn't need a battery to back it up. But if you want to lose this battery and put one of these in, it's actually really easy. So I use that as one of the mounts for the negative. And then the other one, I just measure out and drill a hole through the board. You got to just be careful that you don't hit these traces, so it ends up being right here or somewhere. And then you can mount the battery holder there, and then jumper over to the positive trace with a diode so that it doesn't try to charge the button battery whenever you turn the board on. So I'll show you how that all comes out. Alright, so there's the battery holder in. The ground is soldered to the ground plane. The positive is going through the drill hole and connecting to a diode, over to the trace the battery is connected to. So basically power can go that way, but power can't go that way. So whenever you have the board turned on, there's 5 volts right here, just because of the way the board's powered. I may have that wrong. They may have it. There may be a diode over here or something. But anyway, there's 5 volts on this side of it, and there's only 3 volts on this side of it. So it's not going to do anything. And because of the diode, it can't charge it or try to charge it, because it wouldn't charge it. It'd just make a big mess. And then whenever the board's turned off, the 5 volts is gone, but the 3 volts trickles out of here, because now over here the voltage is 0. So the 3 volts trickles out, goes through the diode, and powers the 5101 RAM chip just long enough on this pin, just enough with just a little trickle voltage, just enough to keep the memory. Wait, have I got that right? It's that's the 5101. Okay, so I was wrong when I said whenever you do the NVRAM, you don't replace the 6810, you replace the 5101. The 6810 is the work RAM, it's just what makes the game work. But the 5101 is what saves the info. So you have to get a little daughter board or a little NVRAM that fits the 5101. They make them specifically for these Bally boards. But I like putting in a little battery holder and a diode. Okay, I want to show you something on this Bally Supersonic that we did all those videos on. Okay, so that big score there, the 295,000 or whatever. Okay, that is the high score of the game since we put the battery in it. You can go in and reset that and everything. But I want to draw your attention to what it does after that. See how it says 03 and then the other ones say 000000. That's because I put a free play ROM in here, and the guy that did the free play ROM, he purposefully made it say 3 in that display whenever the game turns on. So before a game is played, on the very first game, it says 03. So the reason I mention that is because if you watched on the previous 2 videos of this, whenever this thing booted up, the battery's long dead, the score that it would say is 8008. Now that can't be an accident. It said blank blank 8008. There's no way that's an accident. It must be coded into the software somehow. So let's see if the thing will still boot with its new battery and its new 6800 CPU, or it's not a new one, but it's new to it, 6800, because I broke the leg off the one. All of the pins are clean on the PIAs, and we'll see if that does anything for our lamps too, by the way. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. I just have the soundboard out because it's in the way of removing this power supply. So I removed it so I can work on that because we've been having those problems with the lamps. So let's look at the score. So they all say 0 now. And they say 606060. Did it do something weird a second ago where it just went to blank? Okay, whatever. All right, so now the playfield lamps, I think we might have fixed our problem. Look, they're all lighting up in a way that makes sense now. They're not doing that weird flicker thing. So why would that be? It's because these PIA chips are what ultimately sends the signals to the lamp board to make the lamps work. So if you have a bad connection on those in the socket, it could do that. So I think that might have fixed that problem. Okay, so next up, I'm going to pop up the playfield and replace the light bulbs so that we can, because we're going to mess with the lamp board next. And we want to make sure that we get all of the bulbs working and see if there's a rhyme or reason to the ones that aren't working. See if there's anything wrong, apparently, with the lamp board. But this one is flickering. Look. It was doing something weird. I saw it. Maybe it's just a flaky bulb. Yeah, see there? Okay, so yeah. So let me pop the playfield up. I'll put it in lamp test. We haven't done the general illumination lamps yet either because we got to do some paint work and stuff. But I'll put it in lamp test and we'll see if I can get all of them to work. I like replacing all of the bulbs whenever I do it, just so I know they've got nice, fresh, real light bulbs in it. None of that lead crap. Okay, so I replaced the lamps, the general illumination lamps in the back box, and I replaced all of the computer-controlled lamps in the back box. They're all working. Every one of them's working. The playfield, we haven't done the GI yet because we still got to clean we got to paint the playfield and wax it and all kinds of stuff. But I did all of the computer-controlled ones. And almost all of them came right back to life. The ones that don't work are the 2000, the 3000, the 5X, and Miss September. So we only got 4 bulbs that don't work. And no matter what I do, they will not work. So it's got to be a board problem or a wire or something. So I'm going to pull out the lamp board and we'll figure it out. Alright, so here's the lamp driver board. So there's 4 that don't work. One of them is J1, connector J1 pin 1, so that's suspect because whenever it's the end pin, it's really easy for that pin to get a bad solder joint. Looks like the problem to me. For show. So that's that one. The 3K is Q36. I don't know what kind of item that is. I thought they were transistors, but I was informed that was not correct. I shouldn't say the stuff like that. So I just won't call them anything anymore. And it's shorted. Now you might say, well, if it's shorted, how come you don't have the light on? Well, if it depends on how it's shorted. If it shorts base to, how would it be? If it shorts base to collector, see, it's shorted ground to anode. Right? So if it's shorted one way, the light will never come on. If it's shorted the other way, the light will always stay on. So this little thing here, this is shorted. So I'll see if I can find another one of those. Okay, and then Q26 is J17, and Q1, the Miss September, is J124. Well, none of those are at the end of the connector. So it's probably not a solder thing. And they test fine, so I don't know. I'll probably just swap them anyway. I'm not that good at testing these things, whatever they're called. And these things, whatever they're called. They're definitely not transistors, though. Do not call them transistors. So yeah, so I've got two. The one I know is bad. The other one, I think it's the solder joint. And the other two that I can't tell, I'm just going to swap. And we'll see if that gets us our 4 lights back. Okay, so that seems to have done the trick. Every one of the lamps that can flash is flashing. Some of y'all will insist that some aren't. The lamps are the most aggravating part of working on these because people always go, oh, this one... Oh, this one needs oh God, this one needs oh, I don't think the green one's oh God. And it's just, oh good Lord. Okay, so we got all that. I think the thing next to do is mess with the soundboard because then, you know, we're basically done with all of the PCBs. And I've already got it out of the machine anyway. So it plays this really interesting little tune. That I was thinking, we showed in a previous video, I was thinking was the Playboy tune. You know, like they had a tune, I guess, back in the day. And I was born in 78, so this is all before my time. I was but a gleam in my daddy's eye whenever this stuff was popular. But anyway, with that said, so I don't know the theme song, but I did play it on the computer and it sounded like it's trying to play the theme song. And then somebody replied and said that they remember it from playing it back in the day, and it didn't sound right. So I don't know. Maybe the soundboard's messed up. So we'll take a look at it, and then we'll try it back on the machine and see if it sounds like it's missing any of the notes or something. There's not really a good way to tell, I don't think. It just plays some little notes. I don't know how you could tell if they're correct or not. I did look up the ROM, and it has the correct ROM on it, so it's the right board for this machine. So if it's playing the wrong tune, I don't know. So this is it, and the way it's controlled is with the solenoid lines. So I guess if one of the PIAs had a bad connection on one of the solenoid lines, which would be these here, or if there was a bad connection on this board, you might lose one of the control lines, and so therefore it would make the sounds that it triggers be wrong. I don't know. It does look like that end one is off. Is that a control line? Yeah, it is. Look, goes right to there, jumps across, and goes straight to that chip. Yep, seen it a million times. All right, so I'm going to clean it up, resolder those, and I'm going to replace the smaller caps. The big one usually you don't have to replace, but sometimes the smaller ones introduce a lot of noise and stuff, so we'll go ahead and swap them. Yeah, it's very easy, very easy. It's no big deal. Oh, and here's the ROM chip, so you can fact check me. I know how y'all like to fact check me. It's a E729-18. Confirm that's for a Playboy. We better double check that. I'm gonna go fact check myself. E729-18 is the sound ROM for Kiss, Lost World, Playboy, $6 Million Man, Supersonic, and Star Trek. So they use the same one. So basically, whenever they change that ROM, what they're changing is the key, like the octave, not the key, the octave that the notes are in. You can hear it on a few of them. It's a completely different octave. So yeah, so it's the right one. And 729-51 is the one for Paragon, Harlem Globetrotters, and Dolly Parton. That sounds right to me, folks. This is like the test in the... Alright, it's definitely a play on it. We'll let it go on until it gets to the little melody a little bit. You can hear the melody of the pinball machine in the background. Now, come on, people. They're trying. It's about as good as they could do with a pinball machine at the time. That's how it's supposed to sound. It's almost dead on it. All right, folks. Well, that's it for the boards. Next time we'll get back onto the playfield, get it finished up, and then we need to troubleshoot. So we need to check switches and solenoids and play it. We can't play it right now, though. All the stuff's off the playfield, and it needs some work to protect it. We don't want it to wear or anything, so we're going to repaint some of this stuff, touch it up a little bit, clear coat it so it doesn't wear, and then wax it, and then we can put it all back together. We ordered a couple plastics that were broken, so we've got those, and we'll be able to put it all back together. It'll look pretty good with original type stuff. So we will see you on that next video. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Now, if you like watching us work on these Bally pinball machines, here's another really cool one that we did a while back. We'll see you on the next one.